Wait, do you ever get disappointed when you're showing someone something for the first time and you really want them to get it? And
No,
they
not
don't?
at all. I think
Yes.
Oh.
Matt knew exactly where I was
Absolutely.
going with that question.
I'm clearly an Eeyore.
I'm probably Rue.
I'm a Christopher Robin with a poo rising.
And then I get in a canoe and I'm like, Claire's don't like canoes.
No, they don't.
I'm afraid of this lake.
That's exactly what it was.
Ow.
It was a beautiful moment in our friendship. I was
literally in the middle of getting hers up and down the
Pathetic.
stairs. Ow. I was like, I'm trying to get my hair done. I'm like,
I don't think that's an accurate representation of my owl.
well, you were in such pain you couldn't see clearly. So,
Trauma.
Thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. I'm Matt Young. I'm a theater educator and a parent. And ever since I lost my father to cancer, I have been mildly obsessed with death. This is my last will and testament.
Christine Morgan once said, "Setting boundaries is a way of caring for myself. It doesn't make me mean, selfish, or uncaring because I don't do things your way. I care about me too." Guess what? Today's episode is all about boundaries. Unfortunately, Grady isn't with us anymore. No, he's not dead. He's away on assignment. Is that what they say? No, he had something else to do. So this episode is just Claire and I talking about boundaries. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm going to start this thing. This thing is started now.
Okay.
Just got 2 mics going today. We don't need the 3 mics going because it's just Matt and Claire today.
We've spent how many hours talking?
Almost 2.
Yeah.
Almost 2. That's the thing Grady probably will miss the most,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that we were just sitting and chatting for a long time. We covered a lot of subjects.
Yeah, it's been a rough week, and I think having these scheduled conversations are so helpful for my sanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been away. I've been in the most magical place in the world, according to them. No, I had a wonderful time with my eldest in Disney World. And one day, I gave a few updates to Grady, but I didn't reach out to Grady and Claire. And Claire was upset with us by the end of the day. I felt bad.
I'm like, I didn't get any updates today.
But other than that, I kept you guys pretty well updated, didn't I?
Well, yeah, because you know what? I felt like I didn't want to. If you're not reaching out, I don't want to reach out. Like, you're probably busy, so I don't want to bother you.
Right.
But if you're making the updates, then I feel like my responses weren't as much as Grady's, which Grady's been there many times, knows where to go, how to get there, all those suggestions.
He has a lot of secrets.
I've never been there, so all of the things that I was getting from Matt were so new and interesting to me. And he'll send a picture of an elephant. Is that a real elephant? He'll send a picture of something blurry.
Yes. I think that was a cheetah.
No, there was like a real blurry one.
Oh yeah,
you were
well,
like, it's
well, we
someone-
were in the dark. We were in France technically
Oh.
at Epcot Center. Epcot Center's France, and we were on the Remy Ratatouille ride, and there was a big glowing Gusteau's sign, and I tried to get a picture.
Oh, that's what the woolly mammoth was?
Well, oh no! I'm sorry, that was different. That was
Oh.
that was also an Epcot, and that was we got stuck on the Spaceship Earth ride. It broke down on us 4 times, or maybe somebody in a wheelchair or something had to get off, and so the ride stops for a while. But we were stuck there for a little bit, and I gave them updates while stuck on planet Earth. We were in a reclined position. Yeah, it was a caveman. I'm sorry, Neanderthal. Neanderthal throwing a stone at a woolly mammoth.
Oh, so this is not just. Oh, okay. This image. Matt is describing
moving.
an image that I am looking at right now that looks like kind of blurry, but when he described what it was, it now makes sense.
I will say, though, the best part of Epcot was the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster.
Wow.
It was awesome. I guess anybody who's ever ridden it knows that it was awesome.
I'm not a ride person. Like, I can't do roller coasters. Like, I get really, motion sick.
Oh, I think you would have loved this.
So I don't think I would have.
So because it wasn't, it didn't seem like Sawyer's thing really, but he loved him.
Okay,
Ended up loving him.
I got nauseous on the descent of a plane ride recently.
Yeah, no, I could see that because that's like real. That's a real descent. These are
But rides do this. It's
the simulation of it.
Well, it's movement.
Yeah.
And I think it's a certain kind of movement that knocks me
Yeah.
out. But
Because they have a lot of simulator rides that make it feel like you're moving because they move with the screen. There's one, the Rise of the Resistance, which is like, I think my favorite of all the rides that I did. When you're escaping, you're leaving the Star Destroyer, and like your pod kind of like drops into the sky and then flies away, and you got a little drop.
and
it's
that's a
awesome.
simulator?
And it's a simulator.
that is so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to have some sort of drop to it, but
How
I
did
don't
they
know.
do that?
So I had a really nice week on vacation, but Claire's week was a little tougher.
Yeah, I had a couple days that were a little rough mentally, and then but also I've just been recovering from a sinus procedure. So actually, the last couple days have been fine. But I've been so comforted by a book that I'm reading. So it just like if I'm in a bad mood and I get home from work, I'll just open up the book and then it'll keep me lost for a couple hours and I'll be fine.
Have you finished the book and you're rereading it?
No, it's a series. So the first book I read and I finished last weekend, and then I got the next book in the series. I started reading it right away, and now I'm almost done with it.
Do you want to tell us what it is, or is it
Yeah.
a secret? Because once it gets popular, then you won't be able to hang out
I
with
think it is
anymore?
really popular. It's the Six of Crows duology. So it's Leigh Bardugo. She's an author, and she writes like adult fiction and then young adult fiction, and this is the young adult fiction
Shadow
story.
and Bone.
Yeah, it's the Shadow and Bone story, which is on Netflix. And I actually watched the series on Netflix not knowing that they were books. And then my mother, who works at the bookstore, heard that Six of Crows, which is the series after Shadow and Bone. Well, it doesn't matter. You could read them at whatever time. But it's just a different set of characters. So you don't have to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy before you read Six of Crows.
But it's in the world.
It's in the same world. So my mom didn't know that I'd seen this series on Netflix. So she just comes home with this book. And I have to say, I think I've had it sitting around for several months. And I brought it on my vacation because you always want to get a book on vacation. And it took me like probably the whole week to just really get into it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was really into it.
Nice.
So
Gotta grab a book when you go on vacation.
Oh, yeah. And so I finished Six of Crows last weekend, and then I started the following book, which is The Crooked Kingdom, which is a continuation of the story, basically. So you can't just... You gotta just... You can't stop reading Six of Crows because the story isn't over.
Right. You want to get to the end. Well, it's good that it's only two because so many of the series that I'm reading or have read, like The Name of the Wind, there's only two of them out. We're waiting for the third one to fill up the King Killer Chronicles, I think is what they're calling them. So come on, Patrick Rothfuss, get to it. Or George R.R. Martin and his The Winds of Winter. Like, get to it, man.
Is he going to write it?
I don't know. I don't know. They say that it's not going to. They say that he's not going to finish it.
Well, I feel like I hate
That's Rothfuss. I don't know about.
I hate to say it, but
have you read those?
No. And I if it weren't for the size of the books is rather daunting.
Are you talking
Game of Thrones?
Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And also because when I watched most of Game of Thrones, I then tried to read the first book and I couldn't because it was so painful knowing that the characters that are in the beginning of the story are dead later.
What?
Yeah.
Spoilers.
I just I couldn't read it. I was like, this is too painful.
I did not read the first book because I saw the first season, but I did read the second and third and fourth and fifth. I believe the fifth is The Dance of the Dragons. I will say that the second one was, I think, my favorite because it's like Tyrion doing well in life. Like Tyrion is the hand of the king, and he I think is really successful at the Battle of Blackwater. Things just he just gets hurt and gets his nose chopped off and stuff like that. But like he is a good hand to the king. He's not a great hand to the queen in the show as much as he is in the book. So we'll see what happens with the books. Easy.
Sorry. Well, in the show, the actor does not get his nose chopped off.
No, he just gets a scar in his face.
I feel like I've so often been disappointed with film adaptations to books that I also feel like the content of Game of Thrones is so much for me. I don't know if I am willing to take on the literary version.
Yeah. There's a lot of names. I'll give you that. Yeah. In the fourth book, The Feast of Crows, we get introduced to all new characters, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then The Feast of Crows and The Dance of Dragons take place in the same time period.
Oh.
So they kind of overlap. We get back to our characters.
It's a little confusing.
And in the books, I mean, we are so far behind, and different things happen, and there's another really important character that shows up who is not in the series at all, and so she has got the fate of Brianna Tarth and Jaime Lannister in her hands, and it's not good. Oh. They're not in a good position at the end of the Dance of Dragons. And Jon is dead at the end. Then Dance of Dragons. Another spoiler for you.
Jon Snow?
Yeah, Jon Snow is dead. Like he is in the show.
Wait a minute. I thought Dance of Dragons was. Wait, the House.
You're thinking the House of Dragons. They took the name before they knew they were going to. Oh, hopefully this is going to be so confusing for people. They took the name.
I thought Dance of Dragons was the story that we're seeing right now in House of Dragon.
Yes, but it's also the name of the 5th book in the series.
Oh.
In the Game of Thrones series. But this is in the chronicle history of the Targaryens and stuff like that. This is the age of the
Civil
blacks
War.
and the greens and what they call the Dance of the Dragons, because actually dragons were.
So how does Jon Snow?
That's the House of Dragons.
But Jon Snow isn't around in this story.
No, but the Dance of Dragons is also the 5th book in the Game of Thrones original trilogy, and then he wrote a history. And in that history of the Targaryens, or maybe he knew it, this is called the period of the Dance of the Dragons, kind of.
Okay, so how does
that's a chapter?
How does Jon Snow die?
In just the same way he does in the whatchamacallit, in the.
But he comes back.
Well, in the books, we haven't gotten that far.
Oh.
So he's still dead in the books.
You're gonna have to create.
We know that he's coming back. We know that that's not going to be his fate. But at the end of the book, he's dead. Dany's stranded. Jon's dead. Yeah. Brienne and Jaime aren't in a good place. And then we've been waiting for like a decade for this book. Hey, welcome to the Last Will podcast.
No
That's
spoilers
crazy.
here.
What did we talk about? We talked about nothing. Today we're going to talk about boundaries.
Good one.
Personal boundaries, right? So let's just go right to the definition. Let's get to it. Personal boundaries are guidelines, rules, or limits that a person establishes to identify reasonable, safe, and permissible ways for others to behave towards them and how they will respond when someone passes those limits. These boundaries can be physical, emotional, mental, or even digital in nature.
Okay, that's a new one.
And they help individuals define their individuality, maintain their self-respect, and protect their physical and emotional well-being. Setting and enforcing personal boundaries is an important aspect of self-care and healthy relationships. Wow.
Physical boundaries. I don't employ that quite often.
No. But sometimes that's just like distance too, right?
I guess it's... there are times that some people stand a little too close to me and I just take a step backward.
I, as a big person, and I think I've mentioned this before, am constantly aware of my physical boundaries. And I am often trying not to take up much space, and I'm giving people space away from me. Part of what was difficult at Disney, especially in June, everything's hot and sweaty, and sometimes you get into these rides and you were literally like on top of people, and they're like, more people in the room, get space, move in, push, get in further and further. And you're like, I can't get into people's space anymore that I'm comfortable with. I don't want to invade their space with the heat that I'm generating from my body, my sweatiness, so I'm constantly aware that I'm not like in someone's space and trying to make myself as small as I can, which is very impossible.
Well, I feel like, in that case where you're on a ride or something, there's that you can't help, right? But it's also like,
yeah, but I'm still like hyper
but
aware.
it's like, in what situation is cramming people into a small space ever comfortable?
No, you're right.
So shame on them.
Shame.
But also, I feel like if we're conscious about our own space that we take up, there's also other people's responsibility to not get in our space. So
you have to have awareness, though.
yeah.
Right?
So, if I'm getting close to someone physically,
not emotionally.
Sometimes there are things to be felt. Like, I'll
continue. Continue.
I don't mean
I'm
physically.
interested.
I mean like mentally.
Okay.
So let's say there's like some guy and we're looking at his phone. He's like, look at this thing on my phone.
Yes.
And I get kind of close to him and I like feel the heat off his body. I'll feel something. I'm like, ooh. I don't think I should be that close to this person.
Right. Like there's a warning system in you, or
it's just a thing. I don't know. And then maybe afterward I can't stop thinking about it.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Maybe that heat was sparks.
But then there's times that people come unwanted into my space and it's not really their fault. They just have to look at something on my phone, or we have to look at the same computer screen. This happens at my job, and as soon as they get close to me, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then I want to move away, but I can't really because I need to also look at the thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like people's energy give off different vibes.
Yeah. I know when people do that to me, I'm leaning away. I'm trying to give them as much space as I can. My desk is in the corner of my classroom, right? And for a lot of the second half of the year, there's been like a table next to it, so there's like a little way to kind of get towards my desk, and my students seem to just weave past that and invade my space behind my desk. I'm like, you can't be behind my desk.
Wow.
All right, get out of my space.
Wow.
You people. Like, you don't need, no, I don't care about their sad faces. I'm like, get out of my fucking space.
They
come
know.
in, they have no boundaries about it,
Yeah.
and they'll like lean their little bodies against my chair, and I'm like, stop it. Just get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to be back here. There's nothing back here for you whatsoever. Whatever you want to ask, you ask from in front of me.
Wow.
Yes.
I had a traumatic experience, a little trauma, where at my job last year and in the years before, there was a new setup where I would have I'd have a computer in front of me, and the area in which I was working and doing the computer work and like the inventory at my job, it was a busy area. It wasn't well designed for the amount of people who need to work in that space. So there's too much stuff and there's too many people and there's not enough space. So I'm in this really busy like Grand Central Station area, and people have to constantly walk behind me, and I've got a swivel chair, like a comfy chair, kind of like what you have, Matt, and everyone would always put their hand on the back of the chair.
Oh yeah.
And as I would, to balance yourself or to make sure you're not, I don't know, just to kind of give yourself some spatial something to hold on to when you're walking by.
Security or.
But it just drove me out of my mind. Because I'm there, I'm trying to do all this tedious work. The phone's ringing, customers are coming in, people are talking. No one cares that like I'm trying to do quiet work here. And then someone just puts their hand on the back of my chair and it wiggles.
Yeah.
And it just feels like an affront.
Yeah.
Like
It's an assault.
Yeah.
I was stuck on a plane yesterday, coming home for like 3 hours before we even took off. and I just watched people get out of their seats and just grab the seats in front of them to balance and move. And it's like, I get it. You have to duck and you need your balance, but like, how rude is it when you're just not paying attention and someone grabs your seat?
Oh, I would get so mad.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I'd be, hey,
Right.
keep your hands to yourself.
Pay attention.
Oh God, the inner rage is just really ripe these days.
So physical boundaries, those are pretty like different for everybody, of course, but pretty like cut and dry. When it comes to emotional boundaries, are there other categories other than physical and emotional boundaries?
Digital
boundaries. Yes, we all need to have digital boundaries.
Not as much. I do create digital boundaries. I block people a lot.
Yes. Click. So emotional and mental are kind of like the same thing, right? We would say.
Yeah, I mean, we could put them into the same category.
I have learned so much about boundaries from you and the boundaries that you keep. I would say in this last year that I'm super aware of when I am failing in creating boundaries, when I am creating a new boundary with someone based upon listening to you talk about boundaries and watching you hold boundaries and stuff like that. So in my world, you are my expert. You're my Yoda when it comes to boundaries. Now, I'm sure you don't think of yourself as a Yoda.
It's quite a compliment.
Because we don't ever think of it. We're always struggling. We're the main character of our own story, and we know our own struggles. But for me, you were definitely like a pinnacle for how to execute boundaries in your life. I have always been a people pleaser. I still struggle with being a people pleaser. More times than not, I'm willing to sacrifice whatever it is in myself to make others happy. I think I justified that for many years as like, well, that makes me happy to make other people happy. It makes me happy. But I think...
Bless you. Ooh, bless you.
Whoa. It like came up. It snuck up on me.
I don't think I've ever seen you sneeze before.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a human, Claire. I'm a human. I sneeze.
Don't ruin the illusion.
Oh, sorry. I never fart, though. When people are around. I think I used to tell myself a tall tale about it makes me feel good to give to others, to be selfless, blah, blah, blah. But really it was avoiding conflict, for sure.
Yep.
Not trying to drop a pebble in the pond and create ripples because that could push people away. I mean, in the end, I think it has so much to do with the idea of I think I'll be abandoned, my abandonment issues, and how if I do something for myself, maybe somebody will leave.
Well, and also I think, yes, abandonment, and then maybe the desire for people to like you.
Yes.
And
I want them to like me. Even if they don't like me, I want them to like me.
Yeah. Even if you really don't care that much, you still want them to like you. And I get like that too. Like I want to be seen the same by everyone, and I want people to understand me the way that I think I understand me.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that helping others with boundaries is so much easier than working my own boundaries.
Yep.
But also establishing my own boundaries has been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And it can be extremely painful and uncomfortable, which is why people don't do it.
Yes.
But I think from in the history of my childhood and growing up, boundaries were not, I didn't understand what they were. And they were always being crossed, and I didn't understand what that meant. And so because I didn't understand that I could advocate for myself, I didn't think that was an option. So having to unlearn that behavior as an adult is it's I want to say it's like a lifelong journey, but it's because new things are always coming up. You know, I think the things that I've romance is one thing. It's more like as far as dating, I would say, maybe not romance, because with dating you have to learn what your boundaries are in order to be able to get treated well. So like,
wait, you're supposed to get treated well when it comes to dating? I don't understand. What is dating?
Yeah.
No, like also like you're setting boundaries for yourself based upon like what you want out of a relationship, as opposed, like for me, one of the things that used to be like the high priority on the dating list was and maybe even the only thing was, do they like me? And then that was it. That was like the standard for dating. Not were they the right match, or do we have things in common?
Or
but
not,
like,
do you like them?
For what? That's not a part. That's.
I know. Isn't that like blows your mind?
I mean, yes and no.
You're so focused on them liking you that you forgot that you also have to like them too.
Yes. It was like I had a job interview many moons ago for a job that I had been doing for 4 years. I don't know if I told you this story. But it looked like they weren't going to give me the job. Like they started to interview me for the job that was already mine. And it made me think like, well, they don't want me for this job anymore. They're going to get somebody else in. And I think I knew the person that they were going to get.
Wait, why were you interviewing for a job you already had?
Because it was like a directing job. It was at a high school, and I had been directing their fall play for the last 4 years.
Okay.
And then they decided they wanted to have interviews for the job each year. And I went in and I had a great interview, and I talked about theater education, and they were obviously didn't really know what they were talking about. And I just schooled them all over the place. And then they were like, do you have any questions? And in my mind, I was like, yeah, my question is this. Why should I take my immense experience and talent and offer it to your school? Why should I take this job? What are you giving? What are you like? What are you offering to me in terms of my experience? Like, why should I take this job?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I was just polite and I walked out. And then
Wait, you didn't say that, or you
I
did?
didn't say that.
Oh.
This was the thought that I had in my head. I said, no, blah, 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 and I walked out. And then literally 15 to 20 minutes later, on my drive home, they called and told me they were going another way. And it was like, I totally should have done that, because I should have put them on the spot for like, look, there's nobody who knows this job better than I do right now, because I've been doing it the last 4 years.
But they probably didn't know it was good for them.
Right, but all I was doing was begging for them to like me, as opposed to, why should I like you?
Right.
You know? I'm bringing experience and culture and success to your program, because that's what I've done for the last 4 years.
It's interesting because, like, when it comes to job interviews, not like this is the topic right now, but I think about, getting a new doctor, getting a new therapist, getting a new job.
Yep.
You know, when I think about getting a new job, I just think about that sometimes, because I feel like, let's make a healthy change in my life, or let's switch things up, or go on an adventure, or blah blah blah. And I think about like, well, what kind of company do I want to work for? Like, there are so many standards that I like to uphold at my job right now, and as far as quality and customer service. And is the next place that I work going to have the same expectation of excellence, or is it not? I mean, I remember going on a job. I didn't even have the interview. A recruiter contacted me for a store somewhere. I thought about moving to Rhode Island for like 3 days.
Oh,
and
where in Rhode Island?
I don't even remember.
Oh,
but
nuts.
but I just pinged a job listing, and the recruiter for the company set up like a Zoom screening with me. And before I had the Zoom screening, I went on the company's Google page and I read the reviews. And one of the reviews was negative, and like a customer left a negative review, and then the owner of the company was starting to fight with that person in the review. And and
love to read that stuff.
And I brought that up to the recruiter. I said, I saw this and I think that's really unprofessional. Like that would make me not want to work for this company.
Right.
Because your manager or the owner seems to be a little brat. So, and they were like, oh, well, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. And and I said, they were like, well, why do you want to work here? And I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to work for you. I just want to find somewhere that I can, that I
hold the same standards
that
you
I
have.
like,
Yeah.
you know? So, and I feel like in today's world, you know, when you're desperate for a job, that's one thing. But when you're just looking for something better, then you are interviewing them.
I've never had that experience. It's God, you know, whether it's dating or job interviews, it's been the same for me. I just had a job interview as a couple months ago for a job I'm overqualified for, you know, and I killed both of the interviews. And I didn't even make it to I made it to the second interview, but then I didn't make it to the third stage where they were going to bring people in, and I killed it. There's no reason that I should, and I'm begging them. And then the woman who was interviewing me resigned.
Oh.
Like the day she sent me we hired somebody else, we're going in a different direction. You know, thank you for the interview.
Well, that probably means that she wanted to hire you and they didn't want to hire you, so she quit.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Claire.
She was
That's
so
very
upset.
sweet of you. That was very, very sweet of you.
Well, when people people come up with their resignation, it means they were thinking about it for a while.
No, from what I understand, because we have an insider into this school. Yeah, there's something with the new headmaster and whatever, but it should have been like, why should I choose you? Mm-hmm. You know, it shouldn't be me begging for a job. No. But I have to say, I've been trying to get one of these jobs at a private, an independent school for a while, and I'm highly qualified. And I look at a bunch of their programs and stuff like that, and they could use my innovation and stuff like that. And I can't get a sniff at these jobs. And it's the same thing with dating, Claire. It's the same exact thing. I've never thought about it until like this moment, but I have been begging for these jobs, and like sometimes I feel like I'm begging for dates.
I know, but what have we learned? Like begging gets you nowhere.
Yes. No, absolutely. I have had zero success with my game management. On both sides.
So what does this mean? This means
this
means that we have to.
I can't take the rejection personally, right?
No.
Maybe I should be setting a stand. No, I don't know.
Okay, so in the book I'm reading, they have this like on the front of the on the front of this cover. There's a quote from the book, right. And it says, "When the odds are against you, change the game."
Feels like they're stealing a little bit from the Hunger Games, doesn't it?
No,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to insult
that's made the odds ever be in your favor.
Yes, but they're odds.
Yeah, no, the point is this. The point for this is like, these characters are trying to pull off something really hard. And the game, the shit happens and it makes it harder for them to succeed. Yeah. So at some point, the leader of the pack says, I'm going to create a new game. He basically is trying to innovatively create a different kind of heist that no one would see coming so that he can finally succeed and get his money and whatever.
So he's trying to change the game.
He's trying to change his game.
Claire, how do I change the game in dating?
You got to stop trying.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm a trier. I'm definitely a trier. I have in the past, more recently than not, been like, thought to myself, oh, I deserve to be with this person, which is something that I've not thought in the past. It's always like a little bit of like, oh, maybe they'll like me, blah blah blah, and I changed that and still wasn't successful. So you're right, I just have to stop caring.
So if we were to go back to boundaries and create this type of stretch, that I'm gonna try to make this stretch.
All right, let's do it. That's what we're here for.
I have in my experience with dating has been interesting. Like I've had some positive experiences and some negative experiences.
Can I just say though, you're having experiences. That's a little bit of the difference too. And it's not because not because I haven't tried, but because you're an attractive woman and you can have more success that way. Certainly than a man on, like, say, dating apps and stuff like that.
It's tricky. I mean, I have not had much success in the last...
success or interest? Because that is different, right?
Yeah. I forgot where I was going with this.
Oh,
but
I interrupted.
No,
Sorry.
well, because even the experiences that I have had, they don't feel like so significant that I would say like I'm grateful that I had them. Like I guess I am, but I'm not. It's not like I've dated. I've had I have not had long-term relationships. I had one.
Right.
And everything else has been. It just hasn't worked out, and through those experiences I have, and this is over 12-ish years. No, 15 years. Forget how old I am sometimes. And I have had to learn what has worked and what has not worked for me. And I didn't learn those lessons in that time that it was happening. It's taken like the last 5 or 6 years to really reflect on those experiences and been like, oh, like what would I have done differently in this situation? And it's not like what would I have done differently so that I could have stayed with this person. It was like, what could I have done differently so that I didn't experience so much pain, or that maybe I had been able to have a little bit more self-respect coming out of that dating situation.
Right. Self-respect.
Well, that's a boundary.
You're absolutely
that's a boundary that you have to learn, because you have to learn what's okay for you and what's not okay for you.
Right.
And those and I guess maybe the experiences that I have had led me to this, because there have been some really awful ones.
Yeah.
And the reason I get into the awful ones is because it's like I don't see anything other than that person and this experience at the time.
Yeah.
That like, when you meet someone and it's working and you're so excited, and then it's like nothing else matters.
Yeah. I do understand that.
And all your life is this person and everything that goes with it. And that's unhealthy because you've lost sight of yourself.
Yes. But like, okay. So all of that makes a lot of sense, but like when you are alone for so long, it's hard to stick to those boundaries. It's hard to accept the reality of the unhealthiness, like to see the reality of the unhealthiness, because you're just so happy to be there.
Well, I think you're a little out of practice.
Well,
because the experiences have not been but you've had them. Like you've had, I think, and maybe you don't think this, but I think you have had opportunities to express your boundaries over the years. But it's whether or not you choose to make them.
Oh, yes. And it goes back to the people pleasing, because like the last relationship that I was in, which was like your classic situationship, on and off for a long time, no real commitment from the other person because they're fucking Sagittarius, because
I get along great with Sag.
That's what Leos do.
Yeah.
I never wanted to. I was happy with what little I got because it was something, as opposed to being like, I deserve this or deserve that. And I think she would probably even say, like, you deserve more. So find something other than me. And it was hard for me to be able to do that because I just haven't had much luck with that.
I get that. I think the last relationship I was in, which was short-lived but very important for me. Yeah. I kind of felt that I because I hadn't gotten that type of treatment in a relationship. I was so happy to have it.
Yeah.
And I had basically decided like, this is it. Like I've decided that this is the relationship I want forever. But it wasn't like that for the other person. And, for whatever reason, they had to separate. And I was so upset because I didn't get my way. Yeah. And, but I also was so let down and disappointed because I was like, I don't want to find something else. Like I thought I was done, but I mean, that is, that's like not having faith in the process or life or anything, you know, because
I get that, but like there's not a lot of faith.
But that doesn't mean that there's no one else out there, you know, and that's kind of the narrative I was telling myself for so long, that was like, well, because this didn't work out, it's not going to work out with anyone, or I'm never going to find anyone else ever again, which is actually how I felt before I met that person.
Right.
So, you know, we tell ourselves these stories, and actually one of the reasons that it worked out with that person for me was because I had behaved very well for myself. I took my time. I was a little nervous about this relationship. I listened to my body. I listened to my mind. I was careful, and I decided to listen. I got more comfortable with it, in a healthy way. So, and I made sure my boundaries were clear. This person respected my boundaries, which is not easy to find. And
no, because but it also gives you the feeling of like, oh, this person respects me on a deeper level because they're respecting my boundaries, and then that the result of that is like you're more invested in it, and it seems to you like, yeah, this could be forever. This is the last.
Because I haven't ever found anyone else to respect my boundaries.
And I did it the right way, and
I did it, you know. Like that was such a difficult blow for me because it was. I just felt like I had gotten an A+ in the relationship, and you know, that's all relative and everything. But personally, because I have struggled with relationships. And boundaries, it was a major success. Yeah. And I just almost don't have faith that I'll ever find something like that again. But which is why I don't, dating right now to me just feels like I just don't want to do it. I'm and part of the reason that I'm in that place is because I think I've got a couple of things I need to work out personally. Yeah. Like I've just had some, it was busy this year. It was busy last year, and I've had some health stuff going on.
You were busy this year. You were busy last year.
Yeah, I was busy this year. I was actually so busy last year. I was studying for this test, and I actually went on the dating apps while I was studying for the test.
Yeah,
and I had all these dates, and I kept like not being able to go through with them because I was like, I can't, like I have to study, and so it was a little bit rude of me to do that. But then this year was all the shows, and then I was tired, and now I just don't feel like I'm in a position to date at the moment because I feel like my rest and my mind and body healing is more important than dating. However, if somebody comes along, I'm not going to say no. I'm just not looking.
Right.
I'm not going
Which is the only way that it's like according to the sexy indifference is what actors need to do in order to like land roles.
What's it called?
Sexy indifference.
What's that?
Like you go in there and like, I don't really care that I get this job. And so you go in like super relaxed and they're like, oh my God, this guy's super relaxed. So then you're going to get the part because like when you go in for auditions and it's everything, then you're too tense and you can't do it. So you're at the sexy indifference phase.
Sexy indifference?
Yes. It's a Jason Bateman thing. Oh. I've heard him say it many times. But yeah, sexy indifference. So you're like, if it happens, sexy. It happens.
Sexy.
Well, it's sexy in the terms of it's attractive.
Oh,
you know?
it is the word sexy.
Yeah.
Sex, SEXY.
Yeah.
AN. Sexian.
No, sexy.
Oh,
indifference. Claire. 2 words. I've been on
sounded
vacation,
like
so I've been sloppily talking
Sexy
for.
indifference.
Yes, indifference is the second word, and sexy is the first
Okay,
word.
I thought it was sexy and
Sexy and
difference.
different. Oh, okay. A sexy and difference. No, it's based. Oh, punch the mic into my face. It's indifference, really. It's having that like nonchalance towards things.
I mean, I also say like boundaries have been such an important part of my life lately. Well, I mean, let's say for the last like 15 years I've been in therapy, and for 10 of those years I had an incredible therapist who knew me so well because she was my parents' marriage counselor. And when I started to see her, she was talking about boundaries, and I didn't understand what that meant for 10 years.
Okay.
She tried to make it so clear. She tried to talk about the fence. When people step over your fence. Like, she's like, here's a fence. What do you do when someone steps over your fence? You know, like, are you okay?
Right.
So I think, you know, you have to learn, like, when it comes to people pleasing.
Well, you have to. I don't mean to cut you off, but you have to apply it and find success, even if it's difficult. Yeah.
But I also feel like learning about boundaries and practicing your boundaries are like two different things. It's like going to school to be a doctor and studying and reading, but then you have the practical and you have the clinical. Like,
yes.
You read about it and then you have to do it. It's like reading the script and then reciting your lines. You read it in your head, but when you say it out loud, it feels different. So when you learn about your boundaries and then you practice them, it's a totally different process. So I learned about my boundaries, right? And then I reflected on my life, and I thought, okay, in this situation, I did not practice healthy boundaries. Understood, right? Reflected on the assignment, and I understood where I went wrong. And let's say the next day I have an opportunity to act on that.
Right.
I might not do it right because of fear, anxiety.
Yeah.
And again, fear of the person not liking me, or just being afraid of how the person's going to react if I do set a boundary. Also, when I have set boundaries, or I did learn about boundaries and resentments and stuff, like, the first reaction I tend to have is anger and snarkiness.
Do you think you react from that place first?
Yeah. So, like, let's say in my house, because I live with my parents, and those are, you know, that was the beginning of my life. And I've, you know, if my mom asks me to do something, or if my mom, like the other morning, she came into my room before I'd woken up, really, and she was like, I need you to do this. That started something in me.
Yeah.
Because it triggered, it was crossing a line. You know, I wasn't out of bed. I wasn't awake. And she didn't really have any business to start a conversation with me before asking, like, checking in to see how I was doing.
Right. It was just out of her convenience and her
concern.
Yeah.
She was like, I need you to get all of the food out of your room. And I didn't have any food in my room. She just saw me taking some crackers up there the other night.
She's trying to get... She's go up there for crackers?
No, well, she doesn't want me to have crackers in my room, because I brought saltines to my room because I was eating them. And she was like, don't put the saltines in your room. And then the next morning, she's like, all the food out now.
Claire.
But I was, and you know why?
Look,
what?
If you brought all these donuts into your room...
I wouldn't do that.
No, but like if you did, then maybe mom's got a case. But saltines?
I don't. But okay, the reason I brought the saltines in my room is like
you have every right to eat saltines in your bed. If you want crumbs in your bed, you can have crumbs in your bed.
Yeah, I also put the package in my purse so I could bring it to work the next day, and I did that because in the morning, I wouldn't. If let's say I put the saltines in the refrigerator, because that's where my mom likes to keep stuff, the refrigerator, like everything.
Is the experience of eating a cold saltine?
It doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like to keep.
I thought maybe I was missing something that was really big.
No. She just puts everything that could attract ants in the fridge. So there are certain things in my room, like I had like the box of saltines that I got. I just left it in my room because it's all contained. I mean, I get it. There were some chocolates and there was this and that and the other. And I'm like, okay, like as when I went through the stuff, I was like, all right, I could bring this stuff out of my room. You know, she doesn't want the bugs and I get it, but there are no bugs. But sometimes when I do bring food home and I put it somewhere, she kind of like panics. Like I bought like boxes of tea 6 months ago and she's like upset that they're still there.
You hear her pacing outside your room.
She's like, Claire, you have tea in the cabinet. And I'm like, Mom, you have 20 boxes of tea in the cabinet.
If ants really want to get in the cabinet, they can get in the cabinet.
But they're not going to want the tea.
No, they don't even drink tea.
Exactly. They like sugar.
Coffee and sugar. You're right.
I mean, what about your thing of honey that's just sitting right there? Why don't you put that in the refrigerator?
That's unbelievable to me.
But, you know, it's so she has
So the boundaries.
So she has her own set of anxieties.
Right.
And because she and she's made so much improvement over the years. Like really, if she hadn't and if I hadn't made big changes in my life, we would not be having the relationship we're having today. We would not be able to coexist in the same house. But, you know, she has some fear, right? And because of her fear, she tends to overstep because she doesn't know how to, you know, handle that fear. She's afraid that, like the other morning, she knows I tend to oversleep. She came into my room because she wanted to make sure I was getting up for work. And then she wanted to make sure that I was that she could say something to me because when I get up and I get up and then I run out of the house. So she knows that she can't always get a word in with me. Because even if she tries,
she's shouting it from the
she's
front stoop.
Yeah. Like.
Yeah, that's.
So
I guess if she, okay.
My long-winded point is that sometimes I get snippy and I get angry at her because it triggers me.
Yeah.
And because she is crossing a line, and I don't know how to tell her that in any other way besides anger.
That feels like a reasonable though response, as long as you can come back at it later on in the day with some calm and explain to her what you feel are the boundaries that are crossed. Like I understand getting angry, getting angry in the moment and letting that like pass so that you can be more articulate and calm about it later. Like that's understandable. That was a lot of coffee you drank.
It was a lot of coffee.
Even though there was ice, but so you said there's learning and there's applying. I have learned a lot from you this year about boundaries, and I finally got to apply it. And what was a difficult situation, but I feel like I feel good about the boundary I set for myself with another individual, because of the way this individual had treated me. And although there was great history in it, sometimes you have to hold fast to that boundary, you know? And it was difficult, but not difficult at the same time, you know?
The not difficult part of that was probably you understanding that you were getting some relief out of this.
Yes.
So that's a great example of you making a boundary and staying behind it, and then putting your hand out.
Well, I had kind of made the boundary for myself with distance for a good part of the year, but then I had to like vocally say it.
Yeah.
Say it. I think probably covers it. I don't know.
Besides, like telepathically.
Yeah. I didn't do it telepathically.
Usually doesn't work.
No, I try. I try to use telepathy all the time.
Me too.
And no one can read my thoughts, and it's very, very frustrating. So scientists, can you get on that, please? But yeah, no, I had to make it very, very clear. And yeah, there is some relief in being able to do that. Now, if I could get that translated to jobs interviews and stuff like that and dating, I think life would be perfect.
Well, I think that there's like you practiced with the distance, and I've done that too before, where I have actually been too afraid to vocalize the boundary to this person, and in the moment I've thought to myself, this is over.
Right. Like I had in the first 3 weeks of the distance, I was like, I'm going to say something.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something.
Yeah,
I'm going to
yeah.
do this. I'm going to do this. And then 4 weeks comes and I'm like, meh, I'm
Exactly.
right.
Yeah,
good.
I love that. I call that the pause button.
Yes.
It's helped me a lot. But I've done that too, where I actually learned this because several years ago I was in a long distance relationship with somebody and I tried to break up with him, and it didn't go well because even though it was long distance, this person was relentless.
Wow.
They sent me emails, they sent me flowers, they sent me jewelry from halfway across the world, and I was like,
You kept the jewelry though, right?
oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, and then the second time I broke up with him, I didn't tell him I broke up with him. Again, it was long distance and there was communication had fallen to the wayside.
Right.
But I was like, I'm done with this. And I stopped the communication. He also was not making an effort, but I didn't vocalize. I didn't say the breakup. I didn't say this is over. It just ended. And also with other people and friendships and other weird relationships, I have done the same thing with the distance, where I have digitally stopped the communication, and then when that person, I'm just thinking of one person in particular, didn't get the point and they did not want to get, or they thought they got it but they didn't want to accept it, I did have to block that person, because them reaching out to me would have caused more harm to me, because every time they would talk to me I would just get so upset. And it was not serving me anymore. And it wasn't the relationship wasn't serving either of us.
Right.
And this person was just starting shit with me every time, like getting mad that I wasn't talking to them. And then I actually, you know what? I did send him a message. I sent I don't know if the message was like, have fun with your life, bye. But it was like, I don't know what the point of this is. So I don't know why you're being like this, and there's no hope for us ever,
Ever.
And then they wrote back something like,
come on,
I don't want to lose
mean,
you. Like, why would this be the end? Blah, blah, blah. I just didn't write back. Didn't write back. And then, they try to ping me on social media, and I just had to block them.
I have only blocked one person. One person have I blocked. And let me just say that you had a part in it. You absolutely had a part in it.
Wait. Oh, I know.
Yeah, I think you do. I don't have to go into any details.
I didn't see that coming. I'm like, wait, who was this?
Yes. So, it just like the reality was gone, and she was making mistakes in her life for sure. And so, and putting too much on me as an escape from that stuff, that was like the undercurrent of all of the other stuff. But then I tried to make nice, and there just wasn't a reality going on.
You don't. That's one thing about you, and not just you, but some people too. Is
No,
like
just about me.
You don't think you have to make nice with people.
I know.
Because why? Because you want them to think you're a nice person?
Yes.
Who cares what they think?
Well, plenty of people don't think I'm a nice person, I guess. So.
Well, who cares what they think?
Right.
I certainly think that the people who are worth keeping around in our lives are the ones that know exactly who we are. And if they don't understand who we are, then good riddance. Like I don't care for those people.
No, and within the last couple of years, I guess I've had to make more boundaries than I even thought of, just based upon that. Yeah, I mean, I did want people to like me, but there were people who just, I don't know, were I want to say immature and angry with me for nothing, and that is kind of stuck, and certainly has affected my whatever reputation you have amongst your whatever community you want to call
Well, I think
this.
we have to be careful about like knowing, are people mad at us or do we think they're mad at us? Because sometimes I develop a dialogue in my head.
Yes, yes. No, and I do that. I do that often. But these people had made complaints, so yeah, they were kind of mad. Obviously, they're not mad, but they're not a part. They're not a part of my life anymore.
I feel like I don't know who you're surrounding yourself with in your life that's creating these problems for you.
Yeah,
because I don't see any contempt or like maliciousness in you as a person.
Thank you.
Which is why I value you as a friend.
I appreciate that. I look, I don't really think I can get upset at whatever, but like I don't think I have a lot of maliciousness or any in me, and I really like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I know that whatever problems I had came at a very deep depression for me one summer, but I wasn't lashing out. I mean, I had one conversation where I was pretty real with one of these people, but like, you know, if you want to have forgiveness in your life, you have to put your grievances away, and they just didn't want to put their grievances away.
I mean, I think there have been times that I've found that maybe I haven't been a good friend to some people, and maybe one or two of those people have called me out on it. And because they've called me out on it, I've tried to make a more solid effort for that person in particular.
Yeah.
Even though I don't
believe that you were a bad friend. Yeah,
because my MO can be to disappear sometimes.
Yeah. Like, no, I get that.
You know, and sometimes
withdraw.
If sometimes I don't have something to do for the night, like I'm just gonna be quiet and I'm just gonna like watch TV or read a book, and just be quiet and maybe I don't want to call someone.
Yeah.
But then there are those times that I want to talk to someone, but I feel like, well, everyone's busy. No one wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
And usually that's a Saturday night, and I feel like everybody's busy, so I'm.
The truth of the matter is that we're never busy. Like I know for a fact we're never really busy unless we're doing a stupid show, and then we're doing something on a Saturday night.
Yeah, like Saturdays for me tend to be the nights that I either am doing something and I don't want to do it, or I'm not doing something and I want to be doing something.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get the night where you're doing something and you want to do it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
And then I get upset. I'm like, why didn't anyone try to do anything with me tonight?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a big one. It's hard to maybe cover it all in one episode, but I think we did a pretty good job.
I feel like there's so much more about boundaries that I find so important that I just can't even begin to touch on.
Yeah, well, we're, like all great things, and I'm referring to Titanic too, there probably needs to be a sequel. Boundaries too.
Maybe with Grady.
Yeah, I wonder how Grady is with his boundaries.
Oh, I think he's really strong with them.
You think so? Because sometimes I think he's a people pleaser too.
Yeah, but
he doesn't want to cause friction.
Yes. Well, there's like friendship boundaries, but then there's, I know for him, like, I don't know. I feel like if you call him and he doesn't answer, it's because he's setting up a boundary that he needs personal space or something.
Yes. Yeah. You know? Towards his environment, I think he's got great boundaries.
And I think it's taken him like a lot of hard work to be able to establish that, because it's like I think it's great. Like, I respect his boundaries and this and that. And I find it really interesting, and the way that he can describe it and the way that he can advocate for himself. Yeah. That's hard. He will. He'll shut it down when he. Well, and I learned something from that too, because I'm like, well, if he can say that, then I can say that. Yeah. So people pleasing, boundaries, they seem to work at opposite ends. I'm still working on it. I would love to, like, I think I told you, I don't know, maybe it's 2 months ago at this point. I went on a Bumble date or something like that. What? I didn't know this.
Yeah, I think I told you.
No, you didn't.
This. And yeah, because your response was like, well, isn't that the lesson? Oh. The lesson is, you didn't even know if you liked it.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
No, it was a long time. It was like 2 months. 2 months ago.
I don't remember anything from 2 months ago.
And
I think I remember now.
Yeah, and it was like she texted me like 2 days later and was like, oh, it gave me the old. I have an ex-boyfriend who's reached out to me, and I think I'm going to pursue that.
Oh yeah, that's so healthy. Good luck with your life.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an excuse I've used before. It was true at the time, but like it's an excuse to get out of whatever. So it didn't really feel legit. And it was a fine date. And I thought I was very charming and all of this, but like I could tell there wasn't chemistry there. But like I let her rejection affect me when really the lesson was like you didn't really even like her that much. So
I know.
What the fuck do you care?
I know. Even I know that's happened to me too.
Ego.
And the breakup that I know I should have made happened before I could make it, and I was so mad. I should have been the one to do that.
But in the end, like it's the easiest out for you ever. They did all the heavy lifting, and you're like, oh, okay. Well,
you know what I hate is
I've
been broken up with once before where the person said, well, I know how hard it is to be the one to do the breaking up, so I'm going to do it. It's like they're trying to save me the pain of doing it, so they're doing it.
I mean, there was one girl that I was talking to. I haven't spoken to her in like a week or something like that. But like, we've moved from the thing to text. And she'll check in with me, and I think she likes me. But like, is she real? Because
is she?
I don't know.
Is she a real person?
Because there's never like.
Have you met this person?
Not face to face. No.
Oh. It
was Bumble or some one of the things. I don't.
You do have to make sure they're not a robot, because apparently that's a thing.
No, it's definitely a thing. I get a lot of. I get a lot of those, or they're from Thailand or something like that. I get a lot of those, not a lot, but enough. No, it's like a real person. She's like a singer, and she sent me videotape of her singing. But like you never know, because she doesn't. There's never like an effort to meet.
Well, have you offered to talk on the phone or FaceTime yet? Because you should do that before you go on a date.
No, I haven't, but maybe that's the way to do it.
You gotta after a certain time.
I don't look good though on video.
It doesn't matter. It's you know what it is, and this is helpful for me, is that, and I just feel like I'm sensitive to people, but like when I chat with somebody via text, them in person can be extremely different.
Oh, definitely.
And so this has happened before.
I can craft my ship.
I've chatted with a guy that I swore it was the real thing, and I met up with him and it was not.
Oh.
It was.
What was the biggest flaw?
Well, his pictures didn't quite accurately reflect what he currently looked like. They were him. The pictures were him, but they were probably 10 years prior.
Oh, was he heavy?
No, he was thinner and paler.
Oh, geez.
And
that went in the opposite direction. I always think I'm going to get in front of someone and they go, oh, he's much bigger than I thought.
But at least you're not like pretending to be someone you're not.
No, I'm definitely not.
And I think that's important.
Definitely not. There's one time I was connecting with someone and they asked about the podcast,
oh.
and then they listened, and then they were like they said it was a really good episode. Yeah. They really liked it.
That happened to me too. I went out with someone and I think the date was in like September.
Yeah.
And we had started potting like that May or April or March, and they listened to every episode.
Oh wow!
Because he was a runner.
Okay.
And he was like listening to our podcast while we were running, and we like had a little chat, but we never like, we could have been friends rather than like partners,
right?
Because he was like, he just listened to every episode. No, we don't talk anymore.
And now our numbers are down, so thanks, Claire. You gotta keep these guys on the line.
Yeah, I'd love to have listeners, but I don't always want to tell I don't want to tell everybody about this.
This girl, she seemed to like it, and then. A couple days later, unmatched or something. What are you gonna do? Well, thanks for listening. I think we did it for today. I'm not sure there's much else to say. Hopefully, Grady will be back soon. I think he's only gone for a little while. He's not in prison.
No. He's
healthy.
Yeah. He was planning a party this weekend.
Yeah, he was doing a big party thing. And I don't think he thought with me coming back yesterday that we were going to really pod.
for
So
some
he
reason I thought he
scheduled
was
it.
going to be able to come today, but like in the afternoon. So I always thought we were doing the afternoon today.
Yeah, you know what? I think we had mentioned that. Anyways,
Anyway.
people, you don't need to hear this
No.
garbage.
You don't need to know all about our planning problems.
How do we get out of here though without Grady? We haven't done it just the two of us in so long.
I don't feel comfortable making a farting noise. I mean, it's not as good.
Why don't we just say farty noise and then giggle and leave? That's
Okay.
farty noise. So stupid.
So what did we learn? Well, I think we learned that the Dance of Dragons is not only the title of a book in the series of Game of Thrones, The Song of Ice and Fire, but it's also a period in their history. So I think we learned that. The other thing that we learned is probably more important is that setting boundaries and people-pleasing are two very opposite things, and setting boundaries is going to be the thing that challenges those people pleasers to have a little bit more self-care, a little bit more focus on themselves as opposed to just focusing on everybody, and balance. In the end, you can please people a little bit, but you also need to set boundaries, and that's the healthiest way to live. Thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you can get your podcasts. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can go to thelastwillpodcast.com or The Last Will Podcast on Instagram and slip into our DMs. We would love that. It would make us feel very good about ourselves. Till next time, onward, forward,